your regular domestic sewing machine, and we're using a Singer Heavy Duty, your fabric, a sweatband, and these sweatbands are available at capsupplyco.com. Interfacing, and this is a heavier weight adhesive interfacing, a closure for the back, and bias tape or a bias tape kit. Either one will work. And also I recommend grabbing a cover button, and these ones are specifically designed for cap making and they're sold at capsupplyco.com. And lastly, your pattern, and this pattern is available at properfitclothing.com. So go ahead and cut your pattern out on the outside of the black lines. Next, you're going to lay your pattern on your fabric, trace it, and cut it out. The pattern indicates the sides you sewed together, so go ahead and mark those so you don't mix them up. I also recommend labeling them front or side because it's very easy to mix them up when you start sewing. Also, the pattern shows where to stop sewing on the back panel, so go ahead and mark that. So you should end up with 2 fronts, 2 sides, and 2 back panels. Next, you're going to take your back panels, line the right sides up, and sew just that little portion at the top of the back panel. And keep in mind this pattern calls for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, we're going to be adding the interfacing to the front panel, and all you have to do is iron this on, and we're using a piece of paper to go over that so we don't get the iron all sticky. And then go ahead and cut that front panel out. Now take your front 2 panels, place right sides together, and sew just the front edge. And then trim the remaining fabric from the edge. Next, take one of your side panels and place the side edge on the side front edge. And this is indicated in the pattern that you marked. And then you're going to want to sew that side panel onto those 2 front panels. Then go ahead and trim that remaining fabric. Next, you want to take your back 2 panels and take the opposite side panel and sew it to the opposite side of the back panel. And this will complete the second half of the cap. Then go ahead and trim that remaining fabric. And now we're going to be showing you how to set up your twin needle. And this is super simple. Just install like a normal needle, set your machine to zigzag with 0 width, and thread 2 spools of thread the same exact way. So we're going to show you 2 different options for adding on your bias tape, and these are just 2 different bias tape folders. The one on the right is just one you can get at any hobby store, and the one on the left is available at capsupplyco.com. We are going to be using the one on the left just because it's a little bit easier for us to use and we've been using it for a while. But honestly, they both do the same thing, so use whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever one you're using, line it up with your presser foot and then just tape it right on your machine. You definitely are going to want to make sure this is secure so that way nothing's moving around when you're sewing on that bias tape. Now all you have to do is cut your bias tape to the measurement of the folder and you're ready to start sewing. You're going to want to place the seam in the center of the needles and go ahead and sew all the way through, and do this for both of the seams. This will cover up that raw edge on the inside and also give you a nice top stitch on the outside. Then go ahead and do the same thing for the front panel section. So next we're going to be adding bias tape to the back of that opening. And for this video, we are going to use the pre-made bias tape, and there's a link for this in the description. And you can get this in a bunch of different colors, but if you want it to match a hat, I recommend using this bias tape making kit. And you can check this out in our other videos. We show how to use this. It's super simple and it comes with a bunch of different sizes and it's very easy to use. We definitely use this kit more often because that way we can match the fabric with our hat. But for the video, we're just going to show you that there are other options out there. So what you're going to do is take your bias tape and you're going to want to do that opening right where the ponytail is going to be coming out of the hat. And all you have to do is lay your bias tape on that edge and just do a straight stitch all the way across. This can be a little tedious, so just take your time. Now I recommend folding over that back and doing a top stitch, and this will allow it to come together nice and flush. And then next we're going to be adding the bias tape to the back edges, but before you're going to do this, you're going to want to sew together right in the middle those 2 points. And then just hold them together and do a little tack stitch. Then just like before, place your bias tape on that edge and take your time, sew all the way across to the other edge. Next, you want to take both halves, line up the middles, place right sides together, and sew all the way across that arch. and go ahead and trim that remaining fabric. And then go ahead and add your bias tape all the way across that seam. And the last step for the crown is adding a side strip, and this is added on the inside, and these are available at capsupplyco.com. This adds for a little bit of structure at the bottom of the crown and will also help with sewing on the sweatband. So just add it on the bottom edge of the crown and sew all the way around. Next step is making the brim. Go ahead and grab your brim, whatever brim you're using, trace around the outside and down just a little bit past. Then from there, grab your sewing machine and do a straight stitch all the way around that arch. Now go ahead and trim about 1/4 inch from that seam. Flip the right sides out and then start maneuvering your brim into position. And if you are satisfied with the look and the tightness, you can skip this next step, but we are going to be adding some stitches to the top of the brim. And we are using a guide that will be available on capsupplyco.com. It just helps with getting nice, neat stitches around. As you can see, we're doing one line at a time, adjusting it, and then doing the next, and then making sure they're nice and even. Honestly, you can use any guide for this step, something that just keeps that brim from sliding all around. Now that your brim is nice and tight into position, I recommend using a zipper foot for this, and then go around and make a seam along that back edge of the brim. Pull towards the back of the brim to make that fabric nice and tight as you sew. Now go ahead and trim about 1/2 inch from the inside of that brim. Now you're going to mark the center front of your crown and the center of your brim. Place the right sides together, and I recommend using a zipper foot for this part as well, and start from the center and sew towards the outside. And once you have one side done, do the same for the other side. This helps keep that brim in the center of the crown. Now we're going to be attaching the sweatband. This step we made our own attachment, and we made this out of heavier stock paper. All you have to do is make a little sleeve that your sweatband fits in there nice and snug, and then go ahead and tape that onto your sewing machine. It serves as a guide so that way the sweatband doesn't slide all around while you're sewing it onto the crown. Once you have your sweatband guide into position, go ahead and roll over the edge and then just start sewing straight all the way around. And it is really that simple. You get a nice top stitch on the outside and the sweatband will be nice and attached on the inside. And we are using professional sweatbands from capsupplyco.com. These are millinery grade and very awesome for making caps. And now we're going to be adding on a plastic snap to the back for a closure. You can literally add whatever you want onto the back. Cap Supply Co has a huge variety of different components you can add for closures. So go ahead and roll that sweatband over towards the inside and sandwich that plastic component in between and just sew that right on. And it is really just that simple, and go ahead and do this for the other side. I do recommend using a heavier weight needle for this process because you are sewing through a decent amount of material. Now we're going to be installing the cover button, and these again are available at capsupplyco.com. All the links are in the description below. Cut out a small circle of fabric, place it over the top cover, and then insert your middle piece, locking everything into position. Now there's a third prong piece that we already have in the press, and if you don't have a press, you can just push that prong piece through the center with your fingers. Take the top cover and line it up where you see the prongs that are coming through the fabric and slightly hit it with the hammer. This will allow those prongs to go into the middle piece and then lock it all into position, holding that cover button in place. And if it looks a little confusing, go ahead and check our other videos out that are totally dedicated to this process alone. And now we're going to be adding air vents to the cap, and we're just using eyelets. You pretty much just want them to be evenly spaced and centered in each panel. Once you have your marks, go ahead, cut holes, put your eyelets in, and press them into place. And if you don't have a press, pliers work just as good for eyelets. But if you're looking for any tools that we're using specifically, we post all the links in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. And the final step is steaming, and this helps make all those seams look nice, and that sweatband makes it nice and flush on the inside. I highly recommend doing this part either with a steamer or an iron. It just takes the quality of the cap to that next level. And that is how you make your 6-panel ponytail cap. The more you make, the better they will get, I promise you that. So definitely don't give up after one cap. And thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think, and we're going to keep videos coming at you, so stay tuned.